Hi, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it might be where you're at. Today's December 18th, 2020, heading into the new year. I thought with everything that we're facing today and the difficulties in sitting down with people for job interviews, I'd try something a little bit different and do a virtual job interview. I put a few things together here in this video to give you a little bit of idea about my background, what I've done, what I'm capable of, and what I'd like to do in the future. So please have a look at this and let's see if it's something that maybe can take you and your company and I to the next stage of bringing me on board. So my name's Jim Pugh. I've been in the sales business for quite some time. I served in the military for about 7 years. That's where I started my career. I was in a special forces unit at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And I also then, when I re-enlisted, went into military intelligence. Through the military, I gained a background in electronic systems that was very, very good. You can imagine the training that the military provides for their intelligence field and also for their special forces field. So gained a great background in that, taught a little while after coming out of the military. But then I always wanted to be in industry, so I went into designing control systems for CNC machine tools and PLC systems and HMI systems for industrial machinery. For the last 27 years, for whatever reason, people kept putting me in a sales role. So for the last 27 years, that's what I've done for various equipment manufacturers. Ebner, really the majority of my career, Ebner manufactures furnaces for the steel, copper base, and aluminum industries. And I originally started with Ebner in their design department, in their electrical design group, and I was moved into the group leader position there. Before being moved into sales, I took over the sales role from an independent agent in 1993, and I held that role until I moved to Austria in 2006. And worked at Ebner's headquarters there. Things were pretty slow here in North American metals industry at that time, and I went over there specifically to be involved in the introduction of Ebner's galvanizing lines for the industry, for the metals industry. Enjoyed that very much. I learned quite a bit. And then during the financial crisis, or when the financial crisis came, 2008, I guess it was time to come back home. So middle of 2009, I came back home. And one of the things that Ebner always looked at was, because they had their manufacturing facility that was utilized really just for furnace manufacturing, there was always a thought, how can we better utilize the resources in that shop, for the benefit of the company, but also for lowering the costs of the company, thereby lowering the cost of the product to the customer. So the idea was born to have Ebner get their ASME pressure vessel certifications, which they did. And we then developed that new market. I was put in charge of Ebner Fab, developing the market for Ebner Fab and selling this type of work nationwide for the company. We did have good success with that. I feel very proud of that. But in 2014, it was just time for me to move on. And one of the companies that I had met through my work with Ebner Fab was Pride of the Hills Manufacturing. They manufactured well pad production equipment. If you've ever driven past one of these new modern well pads in the Marcellus and Utica shale areas, you'll see quite a bit of equipment there. And this was an area that Pride of the Hills specialized in. Great company, family owned, very good people there. And they grew a lot during that time period of the gas and oil boom in the Marcellus and Utica. And unfortunately, that industry collapsed. I think everybody remembers when there was talk about actually storing oil in pipelines because they didn't have anywhere else to store it. So that industry collapsed, and unfortunately, Pride of the Hills Manufacturing did go out of business, mainly through just the collapse of pricing within the industry. A lot of companies went bankrupt and closed during that time. So when that happened, I guess I looked at, well, what do I know best? What field do I know best? And that brought me back to furnaces. So I went to work for Radcon. Radcon, small privately owned company. It's owned by three gentlemen up in the Cleveland area. And I felt I could really contribute there. It was a field that I knew with the industrial furnaces, with the belt type furnaces and whatnot. So I went there and was very pleased that I did and work with those people. But a former colleague of mine was in a position with a company over in Dusseldorf. It was a small division of a very large multi-billion-dollar company. Andritz Merz was the division name. And he convinced me to come over and work for them. They didn't have anybody for their division representing them in North America. So he brought me on as vice president of sales for North America. And I really got to learn a lot in that new role, but it was unfortunate. Short time after that, he was let go, and the new management came in, and as a part of things new management does, they implement their own ideas, and one of that was eliminating, reducing the workforce by about a third, and unfortunately eliminating my position as vice president of sales in North America. So that did not turn out the way I had hoped, and that led to the period that we're in now. Everybody understands coronavirus and the impact coronavirus has had on the job market in 2020. A lot of uncertainty that we're all facing, but I think we're all very optimistic that 2021 is going to be a little bit better year, and we are trying to get prepared for that growth, that what we're hoping to see in 2021. And we can't sit back and wait for 2021 before we start getting prepared. We have to start getting prepared now for that. So when that rebound does come, we're sitting there, we're ready, and we're ready to take the business again. So I guess a little bit more about my background. I've always been involved with direct business-to-business sales throughout the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, where I would actually work directly representing the company with the business, but then on a global international basis, generally working with independent agents. It's their responsibility to maintain their territory. They speak the language, they know the customers. They're generally somebody that's already working in that field that has that has a reason to be in that company other than just your equipment. But then I would provide them with all the support with proposal generation and visiting them for the technical support and closing the sales. As a part of my role, I've been involved from everything from sourcing the parts, finding the prices for parts, building the proposals, some proposals quite detailed up to 100 pages or more, some proposals, a simple one-page proposal, all the way through delivery and startup of the equipment, being there in a role of, on the startup, probably more moral support than actual technical startups, but doing whatever I have to do throughout that entire process. Never just walking away from a customer through that process. Because I do have that technical background in electrical systems, it's really allowed me to adapt to new types of systems throughout my career. When I first joined Ebner, I didn't know an industrial furnace from a house furnace. Designing control systems for those furnaces allowed me to understand them quite well. But then when we moved into the pressure vessels, the ASME pressure vessels, I really didn't know a lot about pressure vessels. I've seen a few pressure vessels, but I didn't know really much about them or even the market for them. So there was a lot to learn, and because I've got the technical background, I think it supported me well in being able to adapt and learn not just about the pressure vessels and ASME coded type work, but also how to develop the market for that product, that new product from the company I was working for. A big one that I had to get my head wrapped around was the biomass energy and power generation with a joint venture that we created at the time with a Belgian manufacturer called Vinci. 100-year-old company, fourth generation, family owned. They had more than 3,000 units installed around the world at the time I was with them. And the idea about the biomass was to make use of waste from another process. So if you had a process that produced sawdust, well, could you take that sawdust and burn it to create steam, hot water, hot air for other types of applications that you needed? Rather than taking that sawdust to a dump and dumping it. So you'll see a picture of one of these biomass energy power generation plants a little bit later to get an idea of the type of system. But my technical background definitely supported me in being able to understand how that system comes together, the important elements of that, what are the value selling points of the system, and then how to develop the market and find the market and introduce yourself and your product to that market to where you would have an opportunity to compete and win that business. Another field I had to learn was the separation of oil and gas. How does that work? How do you take gas coming out of a well that was just drilled at coming out at 16,000 psi or 10,000 psi, reducing the pressure and separating the sand, water, oil, and gas? How does that work? So understanding those systems, and again, the importance of what your system brings to the customer that you can sell those value points. Final position that I had to kind of get my head wrapped around was industrial furnaces for melting and refining. This was really a new field, even though I was quite experienced with furnaces. But I had to learn this new one. How do you melt copper? What's the difference between smelting and melting and refining? What are all these things? What types of furnaces are used, and what's important for that? What's the importance of the lining material, the freeze lines, all of these different things that you could sit down and discuss it intelligently with a customer. Also a customer that you'd never worked with before, a customer that you had to go out and find, because the customers that are cold rolling steel strip that you used with Ebner are not the customers that are melting and refining copper. So it was also a new market that had to be developed, network that had to be created, and customers that had to be reached. As a part of any, sales role, you've got to negotiate contracts, and I was involved in simple one-page proposals for $10,000 for service up to $300,000 to $15 million projects for very complex systems that had a lot of different important elements that had to be considered. Also, developing service programs and contracts for end users. That's, I think, just another part of the business that sometimes gets overlooked. Sometimes people want to do something with it and they never do. But, you're putting a product, especially these large systems, you're putting these systems out there. And you're maintaining a workforce that to do installation or supervision work or startup work. And if you're not installing systems, those guys are generally sitting back in the office. Well, how about increasing their utilization? It's another asset that you've got that you can put out there. How about increasing their utilization to, again, keep your costs down as a supplier to the industry, increasing your margins by keeping your costs down, but also being more competitive in the market with your product by having a higher utilization of all your assets. And through this development of service programs that you could enlist people to sign on for either a service for their system right now, or have them on a renewal system or a 2-year system or a 3-year system. And for that, you would, of course, give them certain incentives to sign on for those types of programs. And so I did develop those types of programs and contracts for end users. CRM system, if you don't know what CRM systems are, I'm not sure you're in sales. I'm a firm believer of CRM. I've used CRM since it was DOS-based systems on floppy disks. Floppy disk was the first CRM system I ever deployed. And I'm a firm believer in them. I can't see operating a sales group without them. Even as an individual in sales, I think CRM is important. It's much better than trying to keep a contact list in Outlook or something like that, or trying to run your opportunities and projects on strictly on spreadsheets and follow up with them that way. These systems were designed to really help you improve your follow up with customers, you're being able to bring a project from concept all the way to close and getting an order and even beyond. There are a lot of systems out there. Probably, in my opinion, the two most dominant ones are Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics. Both have their pluses and minuses. Salesforce is probably the easier to implement, but Microsoft Dynamics, I think, is a little bit more robust. It has better integration to Microsoft products overall. Makes sense. And has some nice features for tracking KPIs for sales employees and things of that nature. So I've worked with both systems. I've deployed both systems, and I'm a firm believer in using CRM to its fullest extent. Also, as a part of my role in sales and other companies I've worked for, I've been responsible to either work and support agents that are already established in the field, or even establishing new relationships with independent agents in foreign countries where maybe the company I was working for didn't have an agent. So that's an experience that I've got as well. It's very important, a very important element to be a global company, especially in systems. Again, not little things like this that you can put on a shelf and anybody can go buy, but in systems where you need to convince people of your ability to deliver. It's important to have these agents in these foreign countries. So I've grown the market share in the different companies I've worked with, grown the market share and customer base. Establishing the joint venture with Ebner and Vinke was really a joy for me. It was a pleasure for me. Interesting to work for two privately owned companies that had manufacturing facilities in China, in North America, in Belgium, in Austria, in Czech Republic. To have these different manufacturing facilities and all the different interests that both companies have to bring to the table and try to negotiate and bring a good agreement for a win-win. And Peter Vinke always called it the spirit of cooperation. I really like that because that was what was most important to him, was the spirit of our cooperation. So I enjoyed working with that and developing that and putting that joint venture together very, very much in working with my Belgian colleagues on that. As a part of, I think, any professional in our business, you always want to improve yourself. So besides taking technical courses, through the course of my career, whether it was programming PLCs or metallurgy for the non-metallurgist, I also took German courses when I lived over in Austria to try and learn their language. And then I also took some online courses with Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. I took those courses in business administration and also leadership and management. Total coursework was about 1 year in length online. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. A lot of things that maybe I thought was common sense, but then I got to understand the importance of those things a little bit better and to be able to put them in perspective. And I think it really does make me a better business person overall, whether that's in management or whether that's just in doing business. So I think it's a very important element is continuing education for all of us. I told you there were some pictures of an example system. So in the top row here on the left, top left, you'll see this is a typical bell-type furnace installation that Ebner provides, and this is a product that in the beginning I designed control systems for, and then later I would go on to be responsible for sales in the U.S. and Canada for that product and others that Ebner makes, but that's just an example. This is a bell-type furnace. They use it for annealing steel strip coils in steel mills around the world. The top center picture, this is one of those Vinke biomass boilers. So this is actually taking waste, burning it, and converting that to different types of energy, whether it be steam, hot water, hot air, and then possibly in converting that steam into electricity by powering generators. The waste is something that's there anyway, and it would either go to a dump and rot, or they could burn it efficiently and cleanly to create energy, and both environmentally friendly and also cost friendly. So very good product around the world, over 3,000 units. Just the timing in North America was not the right time because of our very cheap natural gas that we've got here in North America as an alternative to burning our biomass waste products. Top right picture, that's one of the well pads installed by PHMI. These blue units, those are the separation units that would separate the air, water, or sorry, the gas, water, and oil, or any type of fuel type liquids, fuel-based liquids. Bottom left, this is called a gas conditioning trailer. This trailer would take gas from one of those wells, condition it and clean it, and then feed that gas over to the diesel fracking rigs and mix it with the diesel fuel so you could reduce both the cost and the operational environmental impact of the diesel systems running the fracking rigs. And there would be up to 16 of these huge, monstrous diesel systems mounted on semis running one fracking rig. So really a great product. We had great success with that product, and it was, again, unfortunate that PHMI went out of business because it was a very good company, but when your market evaporates in front of your eyes, sometimes you have a hard time maintaining it, as I think we've all experienced at one point in our careers or another. Center, bottom row center picture, that's just some work that we were doing as a part of Ebner Fab. That was actually the first contract we received at Ebner Fab, under Ebner Fab when we went out. These are sections that get welded together and put into a long drum, and it's a drum type dryer. The drum rotates, and those vanes guide wood chips and hot gas or hot air down through the dryer from the start to the end to remove the moisture from the wood chips as it goes out. And these are used in the paper and pulp industry. They're used in the biomass industry, all types of industries to dry product. Picture on the bottom right, that's just some pictures of some pressure vessels that we had won a contract for 16 vessels for a project down, I think it was in Texas, one of the plastic pellet processing plants. They were building a new one down in Texas, and we bid on it, and we received an order as Ebner Fab for 16 of those pressure vessels. So that was a good project. Give you an idea of some of the clients that I've worked with. I've worked with Alcoa, EQT, Worthington, U.S. Steel. I think you probably recognize a lot of these names here. But just to give you an idea that I do have experience working with some of the best names in the world in metals production and other things. So I guess I've been around the block. I've always felt that you find success by networking. To get your brand awareness out there, especially if you're introducing a new product. How do you get your name out there? Well, you get your name out there by networking. And who do you network with? You don't just necessarily network with the customers or the end users of the product. You also network with the people that sell into the same market you're trying to sell into. You want to understand their product, what they're bringing to the market, and let them understand what you're bringing to the market, because then when they're with their customer, they realize that customer needs your product. They're going to remember you, and they're going to mention you to them. So it's definitely success through networking to raise that brand awareness. Also, I think it's very important that we always sell value versus price. If we go out and sell price, we might as well just write it down on a piece of paper and submit it or send an email or something and handle the business that way. If you believe in your product and you believe in your company, you can sell value. If you're not working for a company that you can believe in that, then you should find another company to work for, because it's pretty hard to, I think, for me, sell something if you don't believe in the company that you're working for. So always sell value versus price. In selling large systems, it's vital that you don't try to be the guy that knows everything and can do everything. You've got to leverage the company's assets to win that business. The company's assets are your coworkers. They're the people who really know the details and the specialties. For example, on the biomass boiler, you've got a variety of fuels that are burned, and all those fuels have different ash melting temperatures. And if you melt ash in a biomass boilers, you form what's called a clinker. And basically, it's concrete on the inside of your boiler. It's going to give you a lot of problems. Well, Vinci has experts that understand that, and they understand really the science behind that. And it's the same thing with metals and metal processing temperatures. Working for a company that you can believe in also suggests that they have good assets that you can bring to the table to help convince your customer that you're the company that they want to do business with. Without a question, so many people I've talked to over my career said, "Oh, I'm so glad you called me back," because nobody calls me back. I've sent emails to this company and to that company. I never heard from them. A lot of times we can win by picking up the phone and we call people. Stellar communications is very, very important. Doing what you say is very, very important. If somebody requests a quote, get them a quote. If you agree to get them a quote, get them a quote. Follow up with that quote. Ask them if it's meeting their needs. Ask them if they've got any questions. Offer to go visit them. Whatever it takes. Be there for them so they can trust you. Will be there after they place that order. And after they place the order, without question, make sure that company that you believe in also believes in world-class after-sales support. After they put that equipment out there, that they're willing to support it long-term. So I'm going to try and wrap this up quick. What am I looking for? I'm definitely looking for a full-time position, either regional, national, or international. I don't mind travel whatsoever. I actually enjoy it. I enjoy different cultures, different people. Definitely a systems-oriented company. Again, if you're selling a little widget, I'm probably not the sales guy for you. But if you're selling complicated systems, I have experience in that area, and I'm happy to talk to you about a position in your company. Doesn't have to be in the metals industry. Biomass power generation is definitely not in the metals industry, and I was comfortable working in that field. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. So it doesn't have to be in the metals industry, although that is where I have my most experience. Probably can be of most benefit and to a company and know the most people in that field. Doesn't have to be a sales management role, but I'm happy to take on a sales management role. But I'm just as happy to take on a salesperson role. So if you're the sales manager or vice president of sales, I'm not gunning for your job. I'm looking for good work that I can be proud of, and I'm just as happy to be in a salesperson role working for you that I would be in a sales management role. I guess because of where I am in my life, I don't need to make the money that I've made in my career. I've made very good money in my career, but because I am where I am in my life, I don't need to do that. So I do have very, very reasonable salary requirements. I'm not silly about my salary requirements, so I'm not stupid about them, but they are very reasonable. So don't have any preconceived notions about looking at my resume and saying, oh boy, this guy's going to want a lot of money, because actually I think I'm quite competitive in what I'm looking for. Now, I'm available to start work January 4th, 2021. I do want to say something here. I'm available to start work January 4th, 2021. After January 25th, it's going to be tough on me. I will probably have already made commitments to go in other directions after that time. So I've got a window of opportunity here that I'm looking to hear from you. It is, again, December 18th today. I'd love to hear from you at any time, and I'm available to start work on the 4th of January. And I could be available for a sit-down interview with you, a Zoom interview, phone interview, whatever you'd like to do. If you'd like to talk, clearly you know I apparently like to talk because I've been rattling on now for 29 minutes. So if you'd like to set something up with me, give me a call. I will make myself available at your convenience. I will be out of town from the 27th until the 3rd, right after saying I'll make myself available at your convenience. But again, we can do Zoom or something like that during the period. I would be available by those means. So give me a call. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope you have a great holiday and a wonderful 2021. God help us all. I hope it's better than 2020. Let's get 2020 far behind us and move on to prosperity and greatness in 2021. I hope to hear from you. Bye-bye.